That's an 1/8 inch. Now in the real world, an 1/8 inch ain't much. In the plumbing world, an 1/8 inch is the difference between ruining a piece of pipe that costs $150 versus, you know, handing your plumber the wrong piece with a measurement on it. So I never rely on that tab. The only thing that tab's good for is if I'm measuring from this wall to here. That's okay. But when you're measuring pipe, if you do that, chances are you're going to come up an 1/8 short. And like I said, a lot of times when it comes to copper, cast iron, or galvanized, an 1/8 is a big difference. So what we do is, look at your tape measure. See where the 1 inch mark's at? When you're marking pipe or measuring pipe, start at the 1. Lay it on the pipe. So in other words, if I want 2 inches, then you're going to go what? 1 to 3. That's going to give you 2 inches. You're not using this little floppy part here to give a bad measurement. So if you start at the 1 inch mark, then work your way down, you're a whole lot better. Okay, now, does everybody know what the absolute first mark is? It's called an 1/8. Tape measure is broke down in different measurements. It starts out at an 1/8, goes to a 1/4, goes to 3/8, 1/2 inch, 5/8, 3/4, and 7/8, 1 inch. Very important you know that, because if I say, okay, I need you to cut me a piece of pipe 3 and 7/8 inches. I don't care how you look at it. Some have got marks on it, some don't. It's a cheater's tape measure. That's a cheater's tape measure. Yours is not. So how do you find 7/8 on that tape measure? Start at number 1. See those little lines? Yes. Count over 7. Because each one of those little lines is an 1/8. So you want to count over each little line, and that's going to give you your 1/8 measurements. See those little lines on there? You got a cheater's tape. You don't. So if you start right here, and I tell you to go to 7/8, you're going to be right there. Very last mark. Because what's 8/8? It's 1 inch. Yeah. So that's what they call for. You know, that's why they try to teach you fractions in high school. When you go out in the field, buy one with marks on it. Makes your life a lot easier so you're not standing out there in the middle of the field trying to count marks on a tape measure that don't have them. Very important to watch your tape measures. Stay away from that end, because you're going to get a wrong measurement every time. Take a marker, put a little mark on it, and then when you cut it, you know right where you're at. So sometimes, you know, if you've been doing this for 43 years like me, I can look at a piece of pipe and cut it without even putting a tape measure on it. You ain't going to be able to do that. But I've been doing it a long time, so that is a very important tool. Always have a good tape measure. Keep the sand out of it. If you get sand in it, clean it out. You're going to break them. It's just the way it goes. So always have a good tape measure. You lock it down. They all have locks. I want you to take your finger and just feel the side of that tape measure. When you release that thing, guess what? It's coming in. And if your finger's next to it, you got a paper cut. Fingers away from the tape measure. That's all about safety. When you're through, let it come in. 25 foot long. You pull this tape up to 25 foot, you might as well just throw it in the dumpster. Tape's 25 foot and never go past 20. Because if you do, you're going to spring it. So let's say if I say, okay, cut me a piece of pipe 28 foot long. How are you going to do that with a 25 foot tape measure?
Measure the 20, mark it, and go 8.
You got it. What you want to do is make sure your mark is accurate. Then you can measure off that mark and go to your next mark. 28.5 foot. So that's 28, 6 inches. Anybody ever tell you measure twice, cut once? You measure twice, cut once. And there's a reason for it. Maybe the first time you measured it, you didn't see it correctly, or you was on the wrong mark. So if you double measure it, check your mark before you cut it, you're backing yourself up. What I want to talk to you guys about today is basic plumbing systems. And the reason we're going to go over a basic plumbing system is because I want you to understand how a plumbing system is run. Okay, who has a toilet in their house? We have a toilet. It's like this. Okay, and this is where it comes out. And this is your bottom. All right, this is the bowl. So you got water in here, and at the bottom you got a channel that goes like this. Can anybody explain to me why there's an upside down thing inside a toilet like that?
Keeps Pressure.
No. Who likes the smell of poop? It's called a trap. Okay, there's a reason for it. Where's my water level? It's right here, inside the bowl. Okay, so what happens is that water level continues over because it comes through here, right there, and it stops. Well, guess what can't get through there, or can't get through here now? Sewer gas. Because guess what? This is the sewer. Guess what comes back through the sewer? Sewer gas. So when it comes up, the gas comes up, it gets right there, it stops. You can't go through because now it has a wet seal. We call that a trap. You're going to learn a lot about traps. It's the most important thing you can put in a house. Basically, on a toilet, that's how a trap works. We got a kitchen sink. This is the bottom of it right here. Okay, and here's your little drain basket. Comes off of it. And over here on the wall, this is your wall. That's your drain line. Okay? So, if I did this and just put a piece of pipe over to it like that, what's going to happen? It's going to stink. You know why? That's a drain line. There's nothing to stop the gas from coming back. Here's where we go back to the trap. What you're going to do is just like that. It's called a P-trap. There's a reason for it. Because if you don't put that P-trap in there, you're going to smell a lot of pee. Water comes down the sink, and it drains out. Well, guess what? When the water drains out, right here, you're going to have water in the P-trap. And the reason is because it can't drain out and it can't go up. So this water that's in that P-trap is what's going to stop gases from coming back up through the sink into the house. That's why they call it a P-trap. Now, there's a word for it. We get fancy now. It's just not a trap. It's called. And you want to write this down because this is a question that they will ask you on a plumbing test. It's called a crown weir. It's a fancy word for P-trap. This is the crown weir. Right there. That's how high the water can go before it drains out of the trap. This is how high your water can go before it drains out of the sewer line. So that's called the crown weir of the trap. If you don't have a good crown weir, you're going to get gas. You can make the trap deeper, but you can't make it shallower. Because what happens is that, let's say you got a really small crown weir, especially on garbage disposals, and it only goes like this. Let's say I don't use that sink for a week. What's water do when it sets? It's an 1/8 inch per foot. And there's a reason for it. When it rains, water comes into the vent and it drains down into the drain system. If this is pitched the other way, the vent's going to stay full of water. It's going to airlock it, and then your drains are not going to drain. Always remember, venting is up, drain lines are down. Flat vent lines always go up. Pitch up, and drain lines pitch down. 2 inch, 1/8 inch per foot. What we see here, basically, this one's going to have another vent come out. That's what we call isometric for a drain system. Here's your vent. This is another vent. This is a vent. Now, this line right here stops, and then there's a fitting, and it does this. That's your sink. From here up, it's a vent. From there down, it's a drain. Where the P-trap comes out of the wall, everything above that P-trap is a vent. Anything below that P-trap is a drain. Say this is a vent through the roof, the outside, it's in the block wall, catches the sink. You see a straight line like that? That's a toilet. The only mark you'll ever see because it's a self-trapped unit. So, come over here, tub. It's an underground. That could be a shower. It's an underground. If it's above ground, it's a sink. lavatory sink, kitchen sink. You'll never see an above ground or tub or a shower or a floor drain. All that is just, and here's another toilet over here, and then there's a floor drain. And then when it goes outside, pass through the wall with the drain outside, you gotta clean them so that the drain line becomes clogged up. You can take the cap off and go through it. You know something different? See how it runs downhill?
Yeah.
That's your drain. Runs downhill. 3-inch pipe, it's 1/4 inch per bubble. It's 1/4 inch every 8 foot. So if you have, so you're looking 1/4 inch per 8 foot, do the math, you're probably looking at about, I would say 4 inches per. And the reason is because you always want a good pitch to get outside. That's why when we plumb a house, we always have to determine where the septic tank's gonna go. If it's gonna be a city sewer system, how deep it is, because that gives you an idea where you can start in the house. Because the high side of the house is always gonna be the farthest side away from the sewer. You're gonna start as high as you can get, so you just barely below the concrete, build your venting system, your underground system, and then take it across. And when you come out of the house, you don't wanna be 6 foot deep. So that way when you come out, you're not too deep, So there's gonna be 3 phases. First phase, on any plumbing job, brand new, it's gonna be a rough-in. Rough-in is all your pipe that goes in the ground, whether it be traps, tubs, showers, toilet, your toilet lines. Rough-in plumbing is all underground. What they're gonna do is they're gonna stub up lines, of course, as you go, because you don't want to pour concrete over top of your lines, because you gotta have, openings. So, rough. Your second, it's called a top out. That's where your venting system comes in. Once they come in there, they build all the walls. No drywall, just bare walls, in other words, frames. Then you come in, and that's when you run your venting up through the frames and the rafters, and you take it up through the roof. Depends on what you're using for water piping systems, which we'll get into later on, different types of water piping systems. Most houses in Florida that are concrete slab, the pipes are underneath the slab. So not only would you have sewer, you also have water, which means hot and cold. And it's really easy to screw them up. That's why a smart plumber always carries a magic marker in his pocket. He writes, he writes C on one and H on the other. Because I don't care how good you are, you're going to cross a line. It's just going to happen. So if you mark your lines, what I always used to do is carry a can of red paint, spray, and I would just lay out some pipe, spray it red, and that's what I use for my hot lines. So that way I didn't get them crossed. Top out. Water's the same way. Now you got water lines sticking up through the slab. You got to go somewhere with them. We're going to go in the wall, and we're going to do what we call a top out, and that's where you bring the water lines out. You put in any shower valves that you have to put in, and you do all your venting and all your drain work. Trim. That's when you get to put the sinks in, toilets in, faucets, supplies, shut-offs, and all the good stuff. In any plumbing job, those are the 3 phases that you go through. Guy, you show up for work, he tells you, you get through the end, he says, listen, tomorrow we're doing top outs. You know what he's talking about. Or he said, we're gonna do a second rough tomorrow. Well, then you don't need to bring a shovel, you need to bring your cutters, you need to bring saw, and when he tells you you're doing rough-in, you spray your shovel. Because that's what you're gonna be doing, you're gonna be digging. When you go to trim, it's another set of different tools. You'll still use a hacksaw, you'll still use, a couple of things, but most of the time on your trims, you're gonna be using basin wrenches, you're gonna be using crescent wrenches, 5/8 open ends wrench, and those tube cutters will be your best friend. 3 phases, rough in, top out, trim. When we trim a house, normally, everybody's pretty much done. Cabinets are in, tops are in, floors are done. So what do you do when you go trim a house out? Be damn careful, because you can mess up a lot of things. Carry a blanket, so when you're laying underneath on this guy's floor, you're not scratching his tile up. You don't lay your tools on a countertop. Find a piece of cardboard, put it down, then put your tools on it. Because that house is ready to go. We're in there to finish it up so that they can come in and clean that house, and the next step is people are moving in. So you go into a house with a granite countertop, and you use putty on a basket. You set the putty on a granite and walk away. Come back 15, 20 minutes later, pick up that ball of putty to go somewhere else. Guess what's on that countertop? A perfectly round circle of discoloration that will never come out. Because putty sucks the color right out of granite. Always be respectful. Never put your tools on a finished floor or a finished countertop. Put them on something. I don't care if it's paper, cardboard, don't matter. Because you scratch somebody's wood floor, $3,000. They pay more for the flooring they put in that house than most people pay for their houses. And you go in a house that's 5,000 square feet and it's all hard oak floor, and you go in there and put a big gouge in it because you drug something across it, it just don't come apart. You can't replace one piece, you have to replace half the floor. Always be respectful when you're working with your tools. Everybody write this down?
Yes, sir.
Rough in, top out, trim. It's a septic tank. Most houses that are built in rural Spring Hill have septic tanks, unless you're in a subdivision that already has sewer lines. What's the purpose of a septic tank?
To hold all the crap.
Yeah. What happens when that septic tank gets so full that it can't do it anymore? It breaks. You gotta have a pump.
Goes through the house.
You gotta have a pump. It backs up into the house. That tank is supposed to be a portable bug eating station. You ever heard of Ridex?
Yeah.
Septic aid? Stuff they say, you see it on TV, it says, put this in your septic tank, it makes your septic tank last longer. All it is it's called a live amoeba. Literally grows bugs, red bugs, that eat solids in your septic tank, and that's where they live. And that's what you want them to do. That's why you don't find phosphorus in soap anymore, because it kills the bugs. It's not good to dump bleach down a septic tank. That's why you don't have water softeners draining into septic tanks, because salt water will kill bugs. You want bugs in that tank to eat the solids. They're not going to eat paper, but they eat organics. So, paper dissolves if you're using the right, wipes don't dissolve, guys. You can open that tank up 100 years from now and there'll still be wipes in that tank that you flushed down there because they never dissolve. Same thing with women products. They don't dissolve. They're there. So when you get the tank pump, guess what comes out? Exactly. Right here on the end of the tank, well, the inlet has a T so that it pushes the solids down. All right? And then when the solids come over, what they'll do is they'll rise, and then as the bugs eat them, they settle back down. On this side is another T, except in here, there's a filter, which they started making you use in 2009 is when the code went into effect. There's a lid up here that's underground, most of them. You dig it up, pull that off, reach down in there with a pair of channel locks, and you pull this round filter out. And you clean it off, because what it does is, out here's your drain field. That drain field is just supposed to be liquid only. So if you don't have a filter, the solids come up too high, they go into the drain field. Guess what happens? The drain field clogs up. Because the drain field is not meant to accept any solid waste. It's only meant to accept a liquid. And believe it or not, by the time that liquid starts to come out there, if the tank's working properly, it's probably removed about 70% of the waste out of the water. That's the reason why when you drive by people's houses right now, you know how hot out it is, and we haven't had any rain, you see that big green spot in front of people's yards? That's their drain field. Because it's the only thing getting water. So, the filter keeps the solids out, makes that drain field last longer. And back in the day when they didn't put filters in them, drain field was good for maybe 10, 15 years. Now they're 20, 25 years. Because of phosphates getting into the water system, such as the Weeki Wachee River and lakes and stuff like that, that it's from septic tanks. Well, I'm a plumber. It's not from septic tanks, guys. It's from people fertilizing their lawns, okay? They over-fertilize, phosphates come out of fertilizer, chemicals get into the water supply system, and here we go. So now, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna put this tank in. Still have our inlet, still have our outlet, okay? But Up here, we got a vent. Down here, we have a pump, which pumps this up into this tank, and this has filters, which now everything passes through, comes down into this tank, which has an injector, which pumps a solution into the water to kill any phosphate that gets through, which there ain't gonna be none because there's none in soap anymore. They took it out. So, here we have a phosphate-free septic tank system that they're going to require as of January the 1st of next year. So what we have now is not only do we have a septic system, but we have 2 electrical items that have to be fed in that tank. So what happens when the power goes out? Guess what?
Toilets.
You got no septic tank. Because this pump's going to pump the liquid into the drain field. It's not going to be gravity flow. That's the cost of the new drain field. Septic system. $18,000. It's very important to know if you're on a septic or if you're on a city sewer. Because if you go run a snake into this thing to clean it out, you ain't getting it back out. You just lost $1,000 worth of cable because it's all tangled up inside the septic tank. So the septic tanks are usually no farther than 10 to 15 foot off of a house. They're within 10 to 15 feet. So you can hand feed a cable into a septic tank and see if it's plugged up. So it's always good to know if it is or it isn't. If the people say, well, I don't know, ask them to look at their water bill. Because if they're paying for septic, if they're paying for drains, it's on the water bill. Because your drains cost twice as much as your water. If you're on city sewer, your water's $20, your sewer charge is going to be $40. So the county can turn around and process it, turn it into sprinkler water and sell it back to you. That's a little bit about septic fields. Most of the houses that are in the rural area are all septic. We've got all these city sewers in. Where's it all go? The plant over there is no longer working. So what do they do with it all? You ever seen those big things on the side of the road? Great big round tanks, and they got the boxes on top with the little red lights on them? Those are lift stations. That's where it goes. You'll find them all over the county. Sewer goes in, float comes up, turns on a grinder pump, forces it down a force main, which could run 40 miles to a treatment plant, depending on where their plants are at. Like I said, that one over there, they're closing it down. They built a new one that's out off of Anderson Snow Road. If you're ever coming down the Parkway, you ever seen all them big concrete structures out on the Parkway towards Tampa?
Bright lights.
That's a sewer plant. They have blow-offs everywhere you look. You got all these big concrete pump stations. So, what happens is people flush all these lovely items down their toilet. Well, I'm on city sewer, it don't matter. Well, when it gets in the lift station, there's a pump down there with a grinder on it, and if it can't chew it up, guess what it does? It backs up. And when the main line backs up, guess what? Everybody on the street can't flush their toilet. You walk outside and you see water coming out of the manhole. It ain't clean water, don't go play in it. Well, anyhow, that's just kind of like a little sidestep of what we're talking about. So on venting systems, get just of what I'm talking about, why you need a venting system, why you need P-traps. So you understand that you have to have air vents so that the system can drain. Now what we're going to do is when we go to the shop, I'm going to let you actually physically build a little system. We'll let you, some P-traps, put in a little vent system, drain pipe, let you see how it really works.